if in fact the Chinese are actively moving troops to the border, can you characterize how that changes the situation in terms of ramping up of tensions?
It makes it very clear just how dangerous this situation is right now. I think that the authorities in Beijing have been trying to send very clear signals for the last few weeks about how dangerous they view these protests and the unrest in Hong Kong right now. And this is not something that, as Trump claimed on his tweet, just U.S. intelligence is picking up. This is something that the Chinese authorities are pushing out through their propaganda machines in China and around the world. They're showing videos of the People's Liberation Army massing its forces in Shenzhen, just along the border with Hong Kong, in what they believe is to be a deterrent against more unrest and protests in Hong Kong. But it's not clearly having the impact that they would like so far.
Tim outlined for us the impact on the markets. I mean, the Hang Seng itself closed at a 7-month low, but beyond that, Hong Kong obviously is a financial epicenter. It's also a source of funding for mainland companies who want to IPO on the Hong Kong stock market.
Right.
It's a point where money comes in from around the world. So what's the impact?
It's an international trade center. It's a massive, I think, first of all, this would be a political move that would have repercussions in terms of leaving aside what sanctions might take place, et cetera. I do think that this is a case where the fallout from a Hong Kong perspective would be significant. I think the message that this would send also to places like Taiwan, if you want to get into unification of other parts of the Chinese sphere. I just, ultimately, this is not something that the market is priced for, though, to be clear. So back to markets. And if you think about where we are for emerging markets, or if investors are investing through the FXI, which are the Hong Kong listed mainland names, you have a case where, first of all, EM continues to make fresh multi-year lows, 9-year lows relative to the S&P. So in other words, it's massively underperforming. And in the last year and a half, remember, China became heaviest weighting, it was always the heaviest weighting, became almost 40% of that index.
Mike, what ability does the United States have, if any, to influence the situation in Hong Kong?
Yeah, well, I think that while we recognize, of course, that the United States has a somewhat limited amount of ability to change the situation there, I don't think we should confuse that in any way in believing that we don't have an ability to affect the situation there. First, it's morally, I think, the right thing to be doing to stand up for the people of Hong Kong and for their rights, for the democracy there. But we also do have some leverage. First, we can send very strong signals to Beijing that there will be consequences if they were to move in and violently suppress these protests here. Obviously, as was mentioned just before.
Have we done any of that thus far?
Sounds like we've done very little of that.
Have we done any of that thus far?
No, we haven't. And unfortunately, the president has done the opposite. He has repeatedly, up until including just the last few hours, told Xi Jinping through the press that he basically doesn't really care what happens in Hong Kong. He's looking for a good trade deal. He says that Hong Kong is an issue for China to deal with, which sends exactly the opposite signal, tells Xi Jinping that it's okay for him to go in there. But what the president needs to do, he still has a potential to change course. He needs to pick up the phone. He needs to call Xi Jinping, and he needs to tell him very clearly that there will be consequences. There's a wide range of sanctions that could be imposed as a punishment if they were to do something in Hong Kong. And there are a wide range of other things that we could